How do you upgrade an already beloved knife design? Because the Nyakiri was actually one of the first knives we ever made. After 2 years of making knives and designing knives, there were things that we wanted to improve about it. On the surface, it might look like a similar knife, but it's actually very different in a lot of ways. The original Nyakiri had a very polished finish, but unfortunately, what that means is if you were streaming and you were cutting with the knife and then it happens to go at just the wrong angle, it seals your face. This is a big deal for VTubers who might not want to show their face. At the end of the day, we were like, well, you know, girldm's a villain now. So what if we blacken the blade and give us the black heart of a villainess? This is the secret to the knife that doesn't seal your face. Instant coffee. So Blackened Damascus is actually going to be a variant on the regular Damascus steel. What Damascus really is, it's two different kinds of steel, and it's put together steel that is less reactive and one that is more reactive. Iron or steel will rust if it's not stainless. We actually use those properties by having a more stainless steel, which does not rust or tarnish as easily. Technically it's not rust, but like, I don't want to talk about like the difference between like iron oxides and all that sort of stuff. We're going to use rust, just simplify it a little bit. But the funny thing is Damascus doesn't actually make it a better knife. Damascus now is really just to make it prettier. If you made a knife out of just the Damascus steel, what you would get is a steel that has a lot of different patterns along the edge. It just generally won't be as good as a single steel that is meant just for cutting. That's actually why this is actually a sand-my process, which is instead of having one block of steel, you instead have 3 different kinds of steels, 2 sandwiching the other. That means we can have our cutting steel in the center. That is going to be the best kind of steel for cutting and to actually maintain an edge. And then you get all the decorative and cool patterns on the outside. Yes, it does actually prevent this from rusting as easily. A lot of nice knives you might think about are hard to take care of, but luckily the Nyakiri is actually very easy to take care of and does not rust easily. A lot of Japanese knives, which are made out of like blue steel or white steel, those are hard to take care of. They rust easily because they're carbon steel. Stainless steels have 13% chromium, literally chrome. It'll resist staining, it'll resist rust. The old Nyakiri has the heart Damascus pattern design on here, and this one has the dark one. The general way you would do this is to actually dunk this in some really strong acid. The acid actually begins to eat away at the steel that is not as stainless, and you pull out before the more stainless steel gets color. And then you'll have some amount of differentiation in how the steel looks, but it'll be kind of like a grayish color. In order to get it blackened, a popular home method for it is to actually stick the knife in a very strong thing of instant coffee, because then the tannins from the instant coffee actually will bond with the steel, and that's where you get this color. But the pattern on the outside isn't the only thing we've improved. We've actually completely redone the handle and scales as well. This is a full tang knife, which means that the steel runs all the way to the back, which isn't really necessary nowadays. Any kind of tang will work because hopefully you're not slamming your knife into things. No hammer grippy. But you can see that this is actually riveted onto the handle and there is no bolster to keep it into position. Sometimes when the rivets are driven in a little too enthusiastically, we get microfractures, especially if you live in a humid and hot environment, is the scales actually will start expanding. And then because of that, the microfractures can cause some breakage here and there. And if there's a problem with the knife, then we're gonna fix it. In this version, in the Kuro Nyakiri, we have an integral bolster. And what a bolster is this piece over here, which connects onto the blade and basically squeezes the scales into place. And we also have an end cap as well. On the test prototype we have here, the bolster is a mirror polish. However, on the finished design, we will actually have a blackened one. Unfortunately, they couldn't do that in time before the video, so I'm gonna use this one instead. This does increase the weight of the blade a little bit. When you change the weight and when you change the balance of the handle, there are trade-offs. For professionals, you want something more lightweight so you have more control, more finesse, but also so it's less fatiguing for the hand. However, a heavier weight is preferred by a lot of at-home cooks because what it does is when you lift it, the weight helps you bring the blade down and you don't have to use as much downforce. This means that you can cut things a little bit more easily without having to push as much. So it is a trade-off, but generally speaking, I think most people at home aren't using it for like 6 to 7 hours at a time. So each and every one of these knives is hand-shaped by a human being. There are very, very skilled craftsmen who are making each and every one of these knives. Each handle is going to be slightly different because these are all handmade, hand finished. This isn't just some knife that we went, oh, this is an existing knife that comes out of a factory and then we just like, stamp a logo on it. This is a fully custom design, fully custom build, but the function of a knife is to cut. And what good is a knife if it can't cut well? We actually changed the steel from VG10, which is a popular Japanese steel. But the problem is, with how the global supply chain is, VG10 as a steel just really isn't exported anymore. And so we had to look for other steels that would meet our purposes. And what we found is 10CR. The thing about 10CR is that it is known as the Chinese VG10. Oh no! Chinese steel! Ah, it's terrible! Okay, chill. They've been doing this in Yangzheng since Roman Empire? What is 1400 years ago? They were making knives since the siege of Constantinople in 626. Sorry, no Roman Empire is here. It's already fallen. And the emperor launches a desperate strike at the Persian capital? Huh, I need to save this to my YouTube. I need to watch this later. There are multiple different areas that produce the 10CR steel. Just because the steel has the same attributes does not mean it is the same. Just like if you give the same recipe to different people, it will come out differently. 10CR and VG10 are incredibly close in composition. Anyone using it would not really know the difference if it were heat treated the same. And the proper heat treat is where it really matters. If you just get a steel and then you sharpen it, it will not maintain an edge. Heat treating is where you take the steel and you heat it up and cool it down in certain ways. You might have seen this where you get like a sword and you like and then it like bubbles and everything. That's quenching. That hardens the steel, and a harder steel will have an edge that lasts longer and does not need as much sharpening. We usually measure this in something called Rockwell hardness. Rockwell hardness is also known as HRC. You take the like standard French and German knives that you see, these are about 54 to 56 HRC on average. These knives, on the other hand, are hardened to 61 HRC, meaning its edge retention is way, way better. But not all HRC is the same either. We actually pay quite a bit more to do something called vacuum hardening, which is honestly as cool as it sounds. We actually get these knives put into a vacuum chamber where every single bit of air is taken out and then it's heated. That means it has a perfect heat all the way through. And then when we want to cool it, we quench it with nitrogen gas pumped straight into the chamber. A vacuum heat treat is one of the most expensive, but also one of the best kinds of heat treat in order to make the best kind of steel. So you could take the best VG10 in the world and then not heat treat it right, and it'll be really crappy. On the other hand, you can take really bad 10CR steel and then heat treat it well, and it will perform better than VG10. We took both good 10CR and vacuum heat treat and put them into one knife, and then clad it with this pretty Damascus. The Nyakiri is a nakiri, which is a vegetable knife. It is a smaller knife designed for girl DM size hands, so it does look a little small in my hands. The nakiri is an expert at cutting vegetables because of its relatively flat blade. A lot of other blades might have a curve to it, but this one is straight. We did design this knife with a little bit of curve at the tip so that you can still rock it if you're used to it, but the majority of the blade is flat. Over here, it excels at push cuts like this. But the best secret feature of this knife is that if you accidentally spill mayo all over the place and someone asks you to clean it, do not get a paper towel. Instead, take your Nyakiri and scoop it right up. But that is just a little bit of a peek at how we designed the Nyakiri into the Kuro Nyakiri Villainous Edition. Pre-orders begin April 21st. Order yours at viteramen.com with the link on the screen.